Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and Ferrari have had a bit of a disaster these last several weeks. The championship leader Verstappen is substantial indeed. Of course, it's still possible to overturn, and Mattia Binotto does believe that they can still win the last 10 races of the season in a row, but even doing that might not necessarily mean, depending on the numbers, that Leclerc wins the championship. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one. First of all, on the topic of Ferrari, supposedly Haas are bringing an upgrade, of course, to Hungary that's only going to come on Magnussen's car. Mick Schumacher is not going to get it quite as of yet, but apparently Günther Steiner has said it's a big upgrade. You will see it rather easily. It's a completely different car. What I heard is that it's going to be a white Ferrari, says Michael Schmidt from Amos. So that's rather interesting because we talked about earlier this season that the Haas was a white Ferrari with its straight line speed. We've talked about the green Red Bull, and apparently now we might get a Haas which maybe the side pods or whatever are going to look remarkably similar to the Ferrari. So maybe questions will be raised yet again, as they were earlier this season, on research and information and ideas taken from engineers from Ferrari to Haas. Like, of course, they have an ongoing relationship there on the engine side, so I suppose we'll see how it goes. But this is kind of the big upgrade really for Haas this season. If it works, could be big for them in terms of the midfield battle. If it doesn't, they'll probably continue to slip back for the rest of the season. Let's talk Ferrari then, right? I think there's been a lot of discussion really about Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, because I think, like, everyone kind of agrees that on his day, Leclerc is the quicker driver of the two. But Sainz the last couple of years has been the more consistent and arguably has shown more leadership qualities, right? Damon Hill kind of implied that Sainz, the way he uses the radio, talking back to his team, questioning decisions, like, there's more of a leadership element in Sainz's character than there is in Leclerc's, right? I think often you'll see in terms of the way Verstappen and Hamilton talk to their team, like, they obviously listen to their team and, well, take their word for it on some occasions, but often Verstappen and Hamilton will kind of fight back at it. Are we sure we're on the right tyres here? Are you sure this is the right strategy? And Sainz, of course, on the phone saying, yeah, stop inventing or whatever to the Ferrari engineers back at Silverstone, because he was like, well, like, I'm not going to give Leclerc this 10 car length gap or whatever after the safety car because I'm going to be more vulnerable from behind. So I'm just going to do my own race effectively and just say, you know, just go full Sigma male on these guys and just say, well, I don't care what you think. I'm just going to do what I want. Now, Leclerc maybe doesn't quite have that attitude, right? I wonder if Leclerc was in Sainz's shoes there, what exactly would have happened. So maybe it's just something that Leclerc needs to kind of add to his toolkit, I suppose, right? And like, okay, yeah, Sainz can have some leadership qualities, but if Leclerc wants to be the number one driver and the team leader, then maybe he needs to bring more of those elements into his character, maybe, which he doesn't seem like he's going to be working on for the next week, as we'll mention here in a second. Now, Sainz also has defended the Ferrari strategy. He's a Ferrari driver. That's what he's going to do. But they reckon that kind of, you know, with the whole battle was going on, Sainz versus Perez, and he came on the radio and they were telling him box, and he was like, no, not now. I'm in the middle of a battle with Perez. And we saw that on the broadcast right when he was going through the final sector trying to make the overtake happen. Of course, that there is, of course, going to be some delay there. Probably that happens maybe 10 seconds earlier. But still, I mean, yeah, you could argue, is it nonsensical? Is it not nonsensical? But I mean, they're saying that the direction made it seem like it was a stupid decision, really, by the Ferrari pit crew to call him in at that particular moment. But, you know, more than likely that it wasn't exactly the best timed thing, regardless. And Sainz also defended Ferrari's strategy, saying they've done a very good job on strategy this year. I still believe at Ferrari, we get super criticized for things other teams might be going through. Going on to say that people say we're a disaster, but we're really not a disaster, which, you know, okay, maybe there's some element of truth to this where Ferrari get more criticism than other teams do, but I think that generally happens for good reason, that they often make rather questionable decisions, as of course happened again this weekend and has happened many times this season, right? Leclerc has the same amount of mechanical DNFs as Verstappen, but would be closer to him, of course, mainly for this weekend's mistake, but also due to various strategic question marks, I suppose, the likes of Monaco, Silverstone, where Leclerc was disadvantaged in those situations, right? But honestly, Ferrari are maybe going to get third in the two-horse race this season, despite having what is right now rather clearly the fastest car, at least in terms of qualifying. Giuliano De Kessa reckons that these recent updates to the floor has effectively unlocked about 2/10 in performance on a circuit like Paul Ricard. That's obviously a big upgrade for them, should be massively beneficial for them around a circuit like Hungary, but you can't really trust their reliability in terms of the engine itself, also the strategy, maybe even the drivers, to the point where Hamilton's probably sitting there thinking, you know what, if Red Bull aren't so good this weekend, if it's a Ferrari 1-2 and they're the best cars, who knows what happens to the Ferraris over the race, right? Hamilton might be thinking he's got a chance here to actually take another victory at the Hungaroring. And the issue is with the deficit that Ferrari and Charles Leclerc currently have, is that he could technically win every single race for the rest of the season and Verstappen could still win the championship. Verstappen Verstappen's lead, I believe, is 63 points. We can actually see that right here. This is how it's developed over the season so far. Of course, there's been a few key DNFs that have changed the tide of the battle. But yeah, Verstappen has 63-point lead. There are 10 races left. If Leclerc was to win all 10 races and Verstappen was to come second every time, that's a 7-point gap between 25 and 18 points. That's 7 times 10 is 70. So he could still overturn the advantage here and win by 7 points. However, that doesn't include fastest lap points. If Verstappen was to get 8 fastest laps after the remaining 10 Grand Prix, despite not winning any of them and coming in second place, he could still win the championship, right? So that's kind of crazy that Leclerc, even if he wins everything, he still can't guarantee a championship win because, Verstappen could just come second with all the fastest laps and still win the championship anyway if he just keeps coming seconds, even if Leclerc wins everything, right? So that just kind of shows the gap and the hole that they are presently in. But Ferrari are still confident, as I guess you can't really blame them for being, but I remember when they said back in, it was a few races ago where they were still in the lead of the championships, they were like, okay, yes, look, we lost a fair few points recently, but we're still happy with being in the lead of both championships. Now that is long gone. And it must also be mentioned that the last team to have a 1-2 in the first race of the season and then go on to lose the championship or both championships that year was Ferrari back in 2010, where Red Bull won both championships after Ferrari, I think, at a 1-2 back in Bahrain. The same thing happened this year, exactly the same, and it looks like Red Bull might once again get at a 1-2 in the constructors, and the drivers themselves, I guess, win both of those championships, right? So like, Ferrari still reckon that they can challenge, they can try and win all the races. That's the only thing we can do. He says there's no reason why Mattia Binotto that, we can't win all the races to the end of the season. I suppose, he might not see any reason why they can't win all 10 races till the end of the year. I think many people probably can see a fair few reasons why they might not win all the races to the end of the year. We've still got to talk about potential engine penalties, right? There's probably still engine penalties to come for Charles Leclerc. They're already on their 4th engine this season. Leclerc and Sainz, they probably will have to take at least one more, and that's if there are no reliability issues at all, which of course have crept in. Strategic issues, of course, have also affected them and cost them a couple of races so far this season, especially in terms of the way Leclerc has lost points from those type of situations. And driver errors, especially from Leclerc and Sainz early this season, creeping in, makes you think that, the chances of Ferrari realistically winning the last 10 races, I don't know what the odds on that are, but they've got to be very slim indeed, right? It's okay, they believe it, but realistically, there are many reasons why that probably isn't going to happen. But look, maybe they'll prove us wrong and have some sort of second half season dominance, but seems unlikely to happen. And even as Charles Leclerc says right here, he's effectively going to lock himself in a room for a week and just reminisce on what might have been his chance for this year's championship slipping away last weekend. I'm going to have to close myself at home and only go out when I have to catch the plane to go to Budapest. I just want to stay alone. So yeah, tough for Charles Leclerc. I do feel bad for him after this weekend, but maybe this kind of goes in a little bit with what Damon Hill is saying, that does he quite have the leadership qualities that maybe Sainz brings to the team and are required for a driver that wants to win a world championship? That's a question, I suppose, that might well be asked. And even this, just to mention real quick as we close out the video here, Sainz says that he didn't actually take a drink in the car at all because the car is still overweight. So it might be the fastest car on the track in a lot of situations, but the Ferrari still has more weight than they would like. So maybe they can make it even quicker, but doesn't necessarily make it more reliable or Ferrari's pit wall more reliable either. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.